Hi, I'm Roger Himes, the Gospel Life Coach, and today's coaching session number 10 on the love of God. It's called Correct Belief Will Eventually Produce Good Behavior, but good behavior will never produce correct belief. You know, we live in a very visual world. Paul says to walk by faith, not by sight, but most of us tend to walk by sight, don't we? Good and bad behavior is observable, much more than correct belief is. We can have correct belief and still have bad behavior. Or we can have incorrect belief and have good behavior. We tend to look at the behavior, but God looks at the belief in the heart. You know, we're told in Samuel that the Lord does not see as a man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Judging external behavior can be said to be like judging a book from its cover. Now, marketing experts say that we're quickly drawn to some images and colors and other things that appear on a book cover, but that we are negative toward other images and things. This is why that they say that we should not judge a book by its cover, but by the contents. Now, of course, you know, other things being important, like the name of the author or the price of the book or the name of the book, the subject, but all things being equal, we tend to look at the cover first, don't we? Now, God is concerned with the contents of the book, not the cover. His interest is the heart of us. What's inside of us? What's our contents? What's inside a person? What's our beliefs? He looks at this much more than he looks at the outside performance of a person. See, again, God knows that correct belief will eventually produce good behavior, but that good behavior will never produce correct belief. Now, Paul says from now on, we regard no man according to the flesh, or from a worldly point of view, or from his performance. But still, we tend to judge a book by the flesh, don't we? The book of the person. In a worldly, visible way, we look at performance and works and behavior. Now, the gospel is so very important. The reason for this is the gospel is directed to our hearts. The law was directed to our flesh, or what we do or don't do, or what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is bad. But God wants his gospel poured into our hearts because it works from the inside out. It changes us inside so that our outsides are better. We're told it's a good thing that the heart be established with grace. Grace is a definition of the gospel, and Paul says that God's grace is what should be ministered to everybody. He says specifically that we should not minister the law, but the new covenant gospel of grace. Now, it's the gospel that causes us to know God's unconditional, eternal love for us, and everything else good that is ours in his kingdom. Then we're able to show that love and everything else good to other people. The gospel is a very, very natural thing, and it's the process of God in us and through us. Now, under the law, we're told that the heart is desperately wicked in Jeremiah. But in the gospel, the book of Hebrews tells us the heart is good because it's filled with grace and other good things. Jesus says that no good tree produces bad fruit. We're told that God is a good farmer. He knows that if he plants good gospel things into us, he's going to reap good gospel things out of us. That's what Paul says in Colossians 2. He says that the gospel produces good fruit from us. Now, the gospel is the power of God. The fact is that as a gospel coach, I've come to see that we really can't live the Christian life, not the way God wants us to, without the gospel. The gospel is his means and his process that empowers us to live as he desires. As I just said, Paul says the gospel produces good things from us. To try to live the Christian life outside of the power of God and his gospel is impossible. At best, it's living life in what the Bible calls the flesh, or in our human ability. Now, we cannot consistently act on the outside different from what we know and believe on the inside. You see, we're inside-out creations. Jesus says a good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, produces good things. But an evil man, out of the evil treasure of his heart, produces bad things. Pretty simple. Again, we are inside-out people, and the gospel works in us inside out. The gospel changes us inside so that we live in a better ways on the outside of us. You know, folks who live in the law and not in the power of the gospel have trouble living life from the get-go. They try to get going on the right foot, but they start off on the wrong foot, and then they take 2 steps back for every step forward. But if we live in the gospel, things are much easier, as Jesus says, and much more simple, as Paul says. Specifically in our study on love, we cannot know God's love outside of the gospel, because law will always evict love, because it produces guilt and condemnation, and you can't live in guilt and condemnation and in God's love at the same time. Hey, I'm Roger Himes, the Gospel Life Coach, and I want to thank you for listening.